All right. So, welcome to the podcast on the Leica M EV1. We have two distinguished guests with us who've been using Leica, I guess, forever. And I know for a fact that Hari probably owns or has at least tried every Leica there is to try, and every Leica lens probably there is to try, and different versions of each Leica lens there is to try. So, but before I give everything away, I'll let them introduce themselves. So, Hari, why don't we start with you? And by the way, Hari's in Germany.
Pleasure to be here. Again, we've had long conversations over the years, PV and chats. So it's nice that we actually get on the same time and discuss some of these ideas. Maybe a bit of background, right? I ended up with Leica in a very unfortunate situation. My Nikon D90 got stolen, and I basically started with the Nikon D90. And when I was taking pictures, I didn't know why it's a good picture because I pressed a button. If it was a bad picture, I didn't know why it's bad because I just pressed a button and I was a button monkey. I thought, no big loss, cameras gone, lenses are all gone, everything was stolen in Barcelona by thieves. Uh, I didn't really have much talent, so I thought, I'll just let it go and focus on something else. And just then it was 2009 and Leica came out with a Leica M9. And I'm like, now that is what I've been looking for. Something that'll give me auto shutter where I can control the aperture, I can control the focus, but I don't need to do shutter and ISO for every single shot. And that's basically where I started my Leica journey.
Nice.
Chats, over
And
to you.
sorry, just quick one. Uh, you're you're fairly close to Wetzlar, right? Or are you
1 hour away.
1 hour? Now that
Lucky dog.
highlight of the whole thing, which is very important to note. So he can just, if he felt like pick up the car and just, say hi to people in Wetzlar. So yeah.
Which I do. I do have a standing lunch with some of the executives. We
Yeah.
discuss everything from moonshots to current products and what could we do to make it better. And I always come in from the user perspective and of course also from the LSI angle. So it's also the communities that we're building. So yes, very close, and I do meet them quite frequently.
Awesome. Chats, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, PV. So, when did my Leica journey start? I'd like to argue that my Leica journey started in, I want to say 3rd or 4th of December 2003. I was on a flight from Tokyo, Narita to New Delhi, and I get to my seat. I'm sitting in 10A, I think it was, and Sebastian Salgado is sitting in 10B.
Wow.
I recognize him from his work. I mean, you may have seen the New York Times covers, the coverage of the first Gulf War, the oil well cappers who were flown in from Houston. Like Saddam had blown up all the oil wells and there were like spills and smoke everywhere. And I said, "Holy crap, you're Salgado." And he said, "Yes, I am." And for the first time in my life, because I'm a pilot, I'm normally looking outside the window. First time in my life, I was looking inwards and I was talking to him pretty much, I think, 6 hours out of the 10-hour flight. And he was extremely generous with his time. After the plane took off, he kind of stood up. He got out an overhead case and he showed me his R bodies. I think there were R6s that were used by him in the first Gulf War, and I held them in my hand, you know, looked through the viewfinder. At that point in time, I had a Canon 10D digital camera. And he said, "I've never shot digital before." He took a picture with it when he passed away recently, and may he rest in peace. I published the picture that he took on that Japan Airlines DC-10 flight from Narita to New Delhi, and I posted it. I called it Unpublished by Salgado on my Canon 10D. So that's when I learned about Leica. I got my first Leica in 2000, and I kept dreaming about them, right? I ended up getting my M9 in 2009 when they were released. I finally got enough courage to spend so much money on a camera. Interesting factoid, silly factoid, but before I had my Canon 10D, I used to have a Fuji S602, prior to which I had a Fuji 6900, like really cheap cameras, right? And I was thinking about buying a Canon 10D back in 2003, July-ish timeframe, and it was $1,500, and the Fujis were like 600, 800, whatever, I forget. And I remember agonizing over the fact that I'm going to have to spend $1,500 on a body and then spend more on a lens. So I went to this, I was in Orlando doing project work at a client site, and I went to this local camera shop. I looked at the camera, I played with it, and I was dreaming about it, and I was coming back to the client site. And unbeknownst to me, I ended up parking my rental car on a level crossing. There was no gates, there were just lights. And it just so happened, time of day, the sun was in my eyes. I didn't realize I was literally standing on the tracks, and I got hit by a train, dreaming about the Canon 10D. But luckily, the train had seen me, so he braked really hard. I managed to drive that car back to the rental at the airport and get a new car. But that was how crazy I was. But when I got the M9, I really didn't think about it. I just went and bought it. Then I got a 35-25. Then I quickly changed to the 35-2. Then I got the 35-1.4 Similux. And then when the Noctiluxes were a thing and there was a long waiting list, I learned of Ken Hansen. Again, may he rest in peace. I spoke to him. He gave me 10% off on a lens that had a 2-year waiting list. I guess he liked me. And so that's really how my journey with Leica started. And it's just been more and more cameras, gas gear acquisition syndrome. Now I'm kind of stabilized with what I have, but continue to be part of the global family. For the first time in my life, 2014, I was in Hyderabad for client work. Hari happened to be there. He saw my post. He came to the hotel I was staying at, Weston something or the other, in that industrial park, Hari, you may remember. And we sat down, met each other in person. We took a photo of all our cameras on this coffee table, and never really looked back. Got more and more involved in our global Leica camera family. It's, as you know, it's a big family. Lots of representation in different geographies, and got involved with the, at that point in time, LHSA, now Leica Society International. In fact, Hari and I were simultaneously courted by Bill Rosauer and Alan Weinschel in 2018 when we were in Wetzlar for one of the Lights Park inaugurals, the second inaugural. And it was also the 50th year of the LHSA, as it was known at that time.
Yep.
And that's when we both joined LHSA and started taking on more responsibilities, serving on committees, made it to the board, got Hari on the board, and just recently, this past October in Montreal, I got elevated onto the executive committee as a VP and treasurer, and I'm responsible for our media outreach to Leica aficionados all over the world. And I'm also trying to grow our membership specifically in the Asia Pacific region. And Hari and I are going to be doing some cool things on that front. So that's kind of my Leica journey.
Awesome, awesome, so interesting. So for me, I've been now doing photography for what, 37th year now, right? 1988 is when I started, and um, pretty much till about 2000 when I started working, every camera was aspirational, and I hadn't even heard about Leica. But come 2011, actually 2013, I was the Sony A7R released the first, Sony full frame kind of pro mirrorless camera, right?
Yeah.
And I jumped onto the mirrorless bandwagon. In fact, I think I was the first guy in India who was who bought the A7R, and actually Sony called me, and at that time I didn't even realize what a big deal it was. But they called me and said, "Hey, congratulations on buying the Sony A7R and stuff." Now the problem was Sony didn't have too many good lenses at that time, right? I mean, they had this 35 2.8, and then they had launched, I think, the 55 1.8, the Zeiss version of it, which a very good lens at
Very
that.
good lens.
Then, but I was like, come on, I need something different. And the good thing was, and it's so relatable now, it had focus peaking, and they said you could adapt any lens on it. And I was like, oh wow, now that sounds pretty interesting. So I had a few Canon, EFL lenses which I adapted. I had some other lenses, but then I said, okay, probably this is a time to try a Leica lens because the camera was small. It was not a huge DSLR kind of thing. So my first Leica lens was the 50 Lux Silver, and I also got a Whitelander 35 1.2, the first version, right? So that was when I really, and then the rendering just blew me away. I mean, the Sony, I could focus really well because the EVF was nice, and then the Lux rendering. So I said, okay, this brand sounds interesting. Let me dig a little more. And oh my God, that digging proved fairly costly.
Rabbit
But
hole.
yeah, but then my first one was a used M9, and that M9 was pristine. I mean, the guy who probably bought it never used it. It was almost new. So I
Hmm.
bought my M9 in I think 2014, and then immediately followed with Hari's influence the M9 monochrome CCD, which, oh, my all-time favorite camera without a doubt. I mean, the terrible LCD and all that apart, but the moment you see those files, you just go into a whole different world. And then again at Hari's suggestion, the 21 3.4 Super Angulon. This was the one that I think Schneider made, right? This was the
Yep.
old one. Oh
Yep.
my God. That combination, I think I would have shot the most number of pictures with that combination on any like I've owned ever. So then,
Hmm.
of course, moved to the M10, M11 monochrome, and all the cues in between, and SL also. But yeah, I mean, the M series probably is more closer to the heart than any. But
That's
yeah,
right.
so, and then now M11, I mean, M EV1. So that's been my journey. But there was a period I also tried. I mean, I tried like a digital first, then went to film. I shot film on the M6, but before I had the M6, I also had the like a 3G. Again, a 3G which was in absolutely pristine condition. I sold it to a friend, so he still has it in absolutely pristine condition. So you turn the dial to wind, and then you look through to focus in something else, and then you look through to compose something else.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was amazing. The M6 was good. And yeah, finally we are here. And there was a period in between where I was exclusively shooting all my commercial gigs on Leicas. So portrait sessions or weddings. I had the M10, I had the SL, and I had the Q. So that for a while that happened. So yeah, that's been my journey. Nothing, fortunately, nothing very unfortunate. So, but yeah, that was it. So let's ask this question: how relevant is the rangefinder system? It's what, 1932 or something they launched the rangefinder system, and it was obviously something very revolutionary because you had large format, 4 by 5s, 8 by 10s. That's what people were shooting with, uh, or slightly smaller, but 35 probably did not even exist. And then comes this beautiful camera, tiny, and you can move around with it, and then you can actually focus on the fly and stuff.
Right.
But now with technology, just in the last probably 10 to 15 years, technology just you know taking off like a rocket. How relevant is the rangefinder still, and also especially if for commercial photographers? Now I know if you're a Leica enthusiast, you're a Leica aficionado, you would obviously, M has its own place, right? It's fantastic, you love the system. But how relevant is it, or will it stay? What do you think?
Chats, do you want to go first? And I can add.
Yeah, happy to do that, Hari. So from my perspective, the rangefinder is a key component of the Leica M experience, but it is not the only component of that experience, right? You've you've got the tactile physical attributes of the M bodies, right? A singular reason why I've gone through 5 Qs and sold all of them is because I miss
Mhm.
the heft, the feel of an M in one's hand, and I kind of have muscle memory using M's for so long. Never mind the difference in the button layouts and things like that. I mean, the things that matter, the essentials, those are where they need to be, and they've always been where they need to be. So it's very pure. The next element in my mind is the lenses, the legendary glass, right? You think of legends like Peter Carbo or Andre de Winter and others who've just created these fabulous lenses, Mandler. Um, there's something to be said about those lenses and the way they render your subjects. And we're fortunate with the very wide aperture, Noctiluxes and Sumuluxes that just allow for micro focus, razor thin plane of focus, your subject and sharp focus, and everything else irrelevant, beautiful bokeh, blurred foregrounds and backgrounds. So all these make up the experience. The rangefinder, in my opinion, allows you to see more than what your lens can see, and it allows you to be flexible in what you're shooting, and maybe even as you're taking a picture, you're already thinking about your next shot, especially in situations like I live in the Washington, D.C. area, like public demonstrations, First Amendment rights to express oneself. So I've done all kinds of those things. Um, so it's very useful in those contexts. You can be having your eye glued to the rangefinder, and you're either hyperfocal focusing or you're really good with focusing if you're at wide aperture, and you just go on clicking. So that's super important. But you also have the external EVF2s that allow for, through electronics, to achieve critical focus where it matters, to be able to zoom in on your subjects and really identify which aspect of your subject you want in focus. And so I think this evolution, and I know we're going to get into it in greater detail, to the M EV1 is a logical step. But is an M not an M without a rangefinder? Is it heresy? Is it the wrong thing to do? I mean, you've got all these polarizing topics, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, the rangefinder is a critical element, but it's not the only element.
Only
That's my
element.
take.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome.
Well, maybe I could add a few thoughts to that. My analogy would actually be something like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, right? So, of course, you love to have the manual gears, the manual shift, but that doesn't mean having an automatic makes it any less of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. It's
Exactly.
exactly the same thing. It's
Yep.
just the experience you choose and how you want to experience your
Hmm.
enjoyment. So for me, the rangefinder is a thing of its own. Of course, like I've always tried to give you that choice, right? So as Chats just mentioned, you always had this external viewfinder. So right with the M240 generation, you had an external add-on EVF.
Yep.
Then with the M10 generation, you had an add-on EVF. Then with the M11 generation, you had an add-on EVF. I actually still have my Leica T next to me. It's kind of one of the cameras I was fishing around. Even with the Leica T, you still have an add-on EVF, and this
Hmm.
you could actually stitch on top of an M. So the EVFs were actually interchangeable as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on what you want to do, right? For me, the rangefinder is still much faster than an EVF. So if I'm being on the
Yeah.
street, I will have a split second. For me, it's the rangefinder. But at the same time, if I'm at the Italian Dolomites and I'm shooting landscapes, I much prefer the MEV1 because here I'm able to get my accurate focus because the rangefinder is just an approximation. I'm able to get the actual exposure because with the M's I shoot and then do the post-processing.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on where you tend to go and what you want to do. If I just want to be a soldier of fortune, then I take the M11 out and I shoot whatever I can with it. But if I'm really planning to do some very cool measured shooting, then for me, the EV1 is definitely up there. And again, it's not taking a knock on anything else. So here's my beautiful SL3. But as you see, the form factor, the lens, even if you put an adapter and use an M lens on it, it's just not the same, right? And that's where, to me, the M EV1 comes into its own. It
Yeah.
really gives you that M form factor, the M feeling, and it just gets you a totally different workflow.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I
I
mean, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think the MEV1 is the best of both worlds. Really. For me personally, I have very high eyesight. I'm like -11, -12, and something. I've got a tear in one of my retinas. Um, Fortunately, that's stable. Um, I think I'm just going to be living with it. But still, I don't ever want to give up using an M and really get as much of that M experience as possible. And remember, I've tried the Q 5 times across its various generations, and I've never been happy with it, even though I have lovely files. I mean, it's not only the output that matters for me, at least, it's the experience also. And so I think the MEV1 really is a fitting answer to folks like myself who have some challenges, but who don't want to give up the experience. Like I know of so many people, oh, I can't see, my eyesight's bad, I'm going to get rid of everything, and I'm going to live with a Q, or I'm going to live with an SLX, I'll just say, right? Because there are several now. The SL Type 601, I think, is one of the best. And the SL3 and the SL3S are still very good. I myself have an SL2, but it's not the same. I mean, the size, the weight, the feel, and there's Hari with his SL.
601.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, so given a choice, right? I mean, I know maybe you're not forced to have a choice, but if it were a choice between the rangefinder and the EV, what would you and when I reviewed the Leica M11 monochrome, right, on my YouTube, I said I had four or five wish lists in the next iteration, and one of it was a hybrid viewfinder, right, which
mm,
which did both. So when I wanted RF, I could use RF, and I know technologically probably it's a huge challenge doing that. I remembered the X Pro one, the Fuji X Pro one, which I had, which had kind of both, right? It had an optical, well, not a rangefinder, but at least an optical viewfinder and this. But yeah, they did come up with this, the pure EVF. But given a choice, what do you think in the future you would? Because now I'm assuming now every M iteration will have two variants, right? At least the EV variant, so M12 EV and then the M12 RF. So that's how I think the future is going to go. So what would be your preference going forward?
I mean,
you go,
maybe
Hari.
one thing we can tackle, right? So I did have many intense discussions with our friends at Leica, and they did explore a hybrid variant.
Mhm.
But as you
Yeah,
already mentioned, the Fuji is not a true rangefinder, right? So
Yeah,
it's easier to superimpose.
yeah,
But here you have an actual rangefinder with the actual mechanism.
yeah,
So with the prisms and everything, it just wasn't technologically possible.
right.
So that's why they had to go and directionally go with a pure EVF. Um, but gun to my head, I think I would go for the rangefinder.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Gun. I like how you put that, Hari. Gun to my head, I would go with the rangefinder, knowing that I have access to an EVF2, which I could put on it for situations where I need critical focus. Plus, I think the EVF2 and the M EV1 internal EVF do a good job of attenuating available light in dark situations, which makes it easy to focus in the dark, right? Which obviously with a normal optical viewfinder, there is no attenuation. And what I end up doing in such situations is use the flashlight from my phone to light up my subject if I need to, so I can validate that focus is right, and then I take my picture. But that's not always possible or practical, and it is kind of difficult, right? Because you lose one hand.
Right.
I could have a shoe mounted light, but again, it becomes clunky. I mean, I think part of the whole Leica experience, at least insofar as the M's are concerned, is it is just so unobtrusive.
Mhm.
It is so simple. It is so elegant and distilled down to the basics that having all these add-ons kind of
Yeah.
detracts from the core philosophy or mission of being distilled down to those basics.
Mhm.
And
So
the M shooters are notoriously famous for being available light shooters, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
don't see too many of them using artificial sources, as Chad just mentioned.
Yeah,
So you'd rather try to stabilize the camera on your chest and shoot a fifth of a second with available light. But I think that's part of the technique that the camera forces you to learn.
yeah.
yeah, well,
Yeah, for me, and I think this started happening when I started using the M series for also some commercial shoots, right? Like commercially, when I'm shooting portraits or something, I cannot shoot without a polarizing filter, right? And that was the first problem, so to say, right? Maybe not a problem, but the first what do you say, shortcoming, that you couldn't see anything, any impact of the polarizer, right? So that was a
right.
bit of a challenge. Then I think what happened was the wider lenses, right? So the RF
Mm-hmm.
obviously 28-ish, and then anything wider than that. So even with the Super Angulon, I had to buy a
Yep.
viewfinder on top. So we
Yeah.
compose and then focus and then shoot. So that's second. And then, so I was pretty excited when they launched did they launch that with the live view came with 240, the M240,
240.
That's right.
which was good because you had you could use the wide angles and all that, and even a
That's right.
polarizer if you had to. But I was pretty excited when they launched the Visoflex 1, I think with the M10, I guess. They launched that. But obviously, in any kind of low light condition, very slow, very laggy, and then the Visoflex 2 came. I was still not very happy. I think one problem I still have, I put a gun to my head, or even without putting a gun to my head, I'll probably go with the EV. It's purely because of these, advantages that I have. But I think one thing which I still find problematic is the speed refresh rate, right? The refresh rate is not at par with what technology is capable of providing today. So there is a lag in the refresh of the EVF, which comes to my next question as to, again, going back 90 plus years, where the whole M was a revolutionary, not just innovative but extremely revolutionary. Where is Leica really now in terms of innovation? Because I think everything that they're launching is almost like catching up, right? EVF came way later than other EVFs. They were already there in the market. And I know they have this thing going with Panasonic and stuff. So from an innovation perspective, and Hari, you might have more insights into this. What is really stopping to leapfrog, at least in few things? Like, so okay, they made an EV in an M body. Why couldn't it be the best EV that ever was, or ever is? uh, why is it still kind of a tad below par? That's been my pet peeve for a long time with Leica.
That's an interesting question. Maybe also to frame the discussion, right? So I see like a bit like Apple. They're not looking to lead the market in every segment. They wait for the technology to prove itself, and then they make the best product out of that technology.
Yeah.
And in a few segments, like are just totally unique, right? So the M, as we've been discussing, there is nothing like it. There have been folks who've entered the market. So you had the Four-Cylinder Bessas, you had the Zeiss Icons cameras, you had the Konica Hexaris. So really good offers, but none of them could really withstand the test of time. So in that, Leica really wait for technology to become uniquely differentiating, and then they adopt it and make something meaningful out of it. Maybe a good example for that would be the Qs. So there have been cameras with built-in lenses, but when the Q came out, it really blew the market. So there have been folks who never tried a Leica, who thought Leica is the snobbish brand and they're never going to get one. Then they get a Q, they love it so much, they immediately find it as the gateway drug to go to the M. So long-winded answer, but I think Leica really wait for the technology to become mature before they adopt it and launch something that really blows the market away. So the best technology they could in the current set of boundary conditions is what we see in the M EV1, right? So yes, maybe in some future versions, you will see some focus confirmation. There could be some more aids coming. But I think given what was available in the market, this is the best we could bring out right now. And I've been playing around with it for a couple of months. I've put in a lot of photos on the internet. I can't say there's anything that's really forced me to think, but they could have done something better. So at least for my style of shooting, I haven't come across that challenge.
Yeah. So what I would say is, I would actually argue that Leica innovates thoughtfully, carefully, and deliberately. Like, think about the M monochrome. I think that is innovation. They had the guts to take out all the color plumbing, I'm going to use the technical term plumbing, off of the camera, and it only shoots black and white. And not only did it give you a pure black and white type of scenario, it also made the images sharper because they took out the demosaicing filter and all that. And as a result, there was less internal diffraction, whatever. I don't spend a lot of time on the physics of it, but it improved the quality of the files, right? And I also have the M monochrome. I still have my M9. So I think that's one example. And then the other thing I want to say is, because I've had several conversations with Stefan, as has Hari, when they built the M11 platform, they thought about how they could bolt on an EVF component at some later date. And what they did is give the market what it asked for through the most resource and cost efficient way possible that checks all the boxes that are truly required. Like, I've had the M EV1, I first saw it in mid-June or whenever, the centennial was third week of June, excuse me. So I've had one since then, and all the way going in through the official launch announcement. So that's about 4 months, and some of that time I shared the camera with Bill Rosauer as well. But I really believe it checked all the boxes, all the areas that matter. Leica took care of those areas. Could there be more? Yes, maybe, but then that would require alterations to the platform, which again results in expense. Um, and the hybrid scenario really isn't a very good optical and a very good EVF. It would result in compromises, which didn't really make sense. And I agree with Stefan and Leica and deciding not to have a poor experience or a half-baked experience. So from that standpoint, I think it's the right thing to do.
Coming to coming to the focus aids themselves, right? Uh, when I started off the zoom in, I put it in
The
automatic, right? So when you
Yeah,
move the focus, it kind of zooms in automatically. And I was irritated with it, frankly. It was very frustrating. But then now I can't live without it. It's after about 200 odd images, I was like, I like this thing because you can also change, put it on any zone, right? You can move it to the corner,
Yep.
top, bottom,
Hmm.
wherever. And so if you're composing, because with the rangefinder, the other thing with the rangefinder, which I found a little limiting, was that you had to use the center point for focus, right? You had to use the center of the frame for focus, the patches right there in the middle, and then you have to recompose, right? Now with this, I don't necessarily have to recompose even if I'm using the focus aid or the zoom in function. So I could actually place my subject off center and still get that. So now it's become indispensable. Now the only gripe I have with that is, and I know the thought behind this, right? So it's essentially what it's doing is, if you're at f8 or whatever, and you're on a, I don't know, 24 mm, 28 mm, 35 mm, it's showing you the full zone in focus, right? All the lights come up, right? That this is, and I understand the thinking. It's always been like that with Leica, right? It's always been about zone focusing. It's always been about what's everything is focused. But if you really want to only understand what is the critical focus, because the zone focus is zone focus, but I want to, now that I have an EVF, I want to be able to focus on a critical focus point, right? So if it showed only that, and if I'm at f8, I know by practice what the zone will be, or at least with a firmware upgrade, they give us a choice that the focus peaking shows only critical focus, or it could show what it's showing now, which is the whole zone and focus, right? If that's a user kind of choice, I would love that. Again, it's nitpicking, but again, when you're using uh, even if you're using, let's say, a 35 mm and you're using it at f4, 5.6, whatever, it would be really advantage. It'll be a real advantage to know the critical focus point, because now what happens is you get a little confused. Oh, everything is red. So is my critical focus point there or here or somewhere in between? And it becomes very difficult to figure that out. So that was that and the refresh rate were my only two things which I thought, and I know the second one, the focus peaking critical focus point could be a firmware upgrade. I think it's just an algorithm thing. I don't know. Hopefully, at some point they release a firmware, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't use focus speaking personally. I think it detracts from the ability to discern whether your critical focus point is indeed in focus.
Mm,
So I just focus without it, and then I verify if required with the magnification,
mm,
and then I'm off to the races. I mean, most of the pictures I took, I would say I really didn't pay a lot of attention to having to zoom in, magnify to validate, because I was able to get a pretty good idea that what I'm intending to be in focus is in focus, and that's all that matters to me. So I
are you
think
using
it's
any focus aid at all, or just the EVF and just you know
just the EVF, the auto zoom,
zoom?
if
Okay,
required,
yeah.
and that's really it. Because it snaps into focus nicely.
Mm,
I mean, insofar as the refresh rate is concerned, I think I've been mildly bugged by it if my subject is moving and it gets a little jerky.
yeah, laggy. Yeah.
Um, but again, that doesn't always bother me. I'm not shooting Formula One cars on a track somewhere. So, for my style of what I like to do, it really doesn't affect me. I mean, it'd be interesting to take Elsie to a protest and see how that works because uh, again, living in DC, I've been witness to a lot of protests for a lot of things, and I've been able to just go around like taking hundreds of pictures effortlessly with all my M's, and I go with three or four of them around my neck, and
Mm.
so it'll be interesting to see how this works out in that situation
In
when I'm forced to focus on what the lens is showing.
Well, in broad daylight, the lag is not an issue because there's ample light. I think
Yeah.
the issue is only when you're shooting in like low light, you're doing some night streets or something like that. That's where that problem happens. Otherwise, I think the refresh rate in normal light is
Yeah. What I have seen in broad daylight though is, I don't know if you gentlemen have similar or different experiences. I feel sometimes that the EVF is a little washed out. It's hard to see, so I miss the cup that the SL family has that kind of blocks light from leaking in. So again, I think that's just a minor thing that's relatively easy to fix through just some physical add-on that somebody will create.
Hari, any thoughts on any of these, the focus peaking at all?
The focus peaking, definitely. I mean, though the M is my primary, and I do have the Qs, the SLs, the Ts, pretty much every film like we ever made. I like experimenting, as you know me, right? So I've got lenses in maybe even the triple digits now. So even with the M240, I was extremely happy to get an EVF because I again didn't want to carry two, three different bodies. So
Right.
I was using the Biotar 58 f2, beautiful lens. I have the black version of it. I think it's got 18 aperture blades, 24 aperture blades, something like that. So I got a M42 to Leica M adapter, and I would shoot it with the Visoflex. Likewise, I still had the old Trioplan 102.8 with a soap bubble bokeh from way back in the day. So I used to use it. And I'm leading with this point of view because I do still use a lot of these older lenses with the EVF on the M's. So to me, it's become second nature to first focus wide open, get my point of focus, and then stop down. Maybe that's a fundamental change because I had to adapt things to a platform that wasn't natively built for it. So, I just had to find a way around doing what I wanted to do. So instead of
Yeah.
carrying five, six different cameras, I just carried one camera and used the EVF and changed the different lenses. So when I got the M EV1, it kind of automatically took me back to that approach of first nail the focus and then stop down. So I think that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's interesting. I need to try that. I never thought about it that way. I mean, I always dial the aperture first
Hmm.
and then, do whatever I need to do. That's pretty interesting that okay, if the I mean the peaking is bothering you, just focus wide open and then, stop it down. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
You always figure out something, I guess.
because it does affect the
That's why
amount of
we're having this
light.
chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about do you see any I wouldn't say different, but anything on the image quality? I mean, personally, I love it. I mean, there is hardly, let me put it this way, apart from probably the 240 in between, I don't think I've ever disliked like a image, the IQ, right? I mean, I don't really bother too much about high ISO noise and all that stuff. I think,
Yeah.
photographers just make their own light. Uh, I really, I don't know why photographers would shoot in bad light, either create your own light or shoot in good light. So I've never been bothered about any camera for that matter, this whole noise bit. And now with Photoshop having this denoise function, which is absolutely kick-ass. I mean, it just gives you a
Yep.
pristine image, once you apply it, if at all you need to. Never bothered about that. So I don't even test cameras, even if I'm testing cameras, I never go to, oh, this is usable till 6,400 or 12,800 or whatever. It doesn't matter to me.
It's all irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, so image quality, just loved it. Very malleable. I tried different presets on it, processing it in, like a Portra or like something else or a Wes Anderson look or whatever. Just love it. And I think that's what keeps bringing me back to like a one primary thing apart from tactile feel, all that. The image quality, I think, is something, their color science, and while, Hasselblad has its own natural color science and Fuji has its own thing, but somehow once you shoot an image and look at it in your screen, oh my God, there is something very satisfying about the look and feel of that image.
I mean, I can't disagree, right? So, of course, with the beautiful like us, I also do shoot a bunch of Hasselblad, so that's the X2D. And my favorite is probably this beauty here. This is, of course, the 907 with the 100 megapixel digital back. So beautiful cameras, 100 megapixel back, give you a lot of good detail. But I have to say, it doesn't give me that Leica look, you know. So now I know we're getting into dangerous territory of what is the Leica look, but it's just something I see in the pictures and I
Yeah.
don't see when I'm shooting with these other cameras. And again, I'm not taking a knock at them. I've spent my money on them, so I'm not trying to influence anybody. I am the influencer influencing myself. Uh, but also, to be fair to Leica, I don't see these cameras giving me the same look.
Yeah. It is a thing of beauty. I mean, the only analog I can think of is, what is the analog? So I listen to analog music. I have full analog everything. Uh, Turntable runs off of DC battery. I've got these obviously magnetic moving coil thing, cartridge. I When I listen to analog music, I feel like someone's pouring honey on me. Literally, that's the only way I can describe the feeling, because it's very silky, it's very velvety. You hear things that you've never heard before. Um, Maybe an intake of breath, or just the plucking of a chord, or something. Just um, a sound on the drum set, or brushing a drumstick across, a hi hat or something like that. It's very velvety, very silky, and like I said, very honey like. I get the same impression from some of these cameras. It's that richness, it's that opulence, it's that depth. And with the tools that one has available today, Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Photoshop, you can take whatever you have as a base, and the files, like even from M9, like I'm not worried about ISO, like you said, right? I completely agree with you. They're extremely malleable. They're a very solid foundation. I mean, obviously, assuming you're using raw files, DNG files in Leica's case, they're very malleable, and you can do what you want with them. And I found that I really don't need to do a lot. I mean, maybe straighten the image a little bit if my horizon's tilted. Maybe do a little bit of a crop to get the aspect ratio or my subject appropriately located in the frame. Beyond that, just very little, maybe a little bit of contrast, maybe a little bit of saturation. And that, coupled with just the optics, the glass, the beauty, really all together makes for this Leica look.
Yeah. So what's been your favorite lens on the M EV1? And I know Hari will find it very difficult, just the sheer lineup he has, but
I think I would go so far with the Noctilux 75 1.25. Also, because one, the lens is absolutely stupendous. The second is, for me, the EVF is really for critical focus, right? So that's where I really see this combination come to life so beautifully. It sometimes feel like you've just cut a picture out and stuck it on a background. The separation is just absolutely incredible. I would say that's my favorite so far.
I mean, sorry, 75 knocked.
Yeah. For me, I think it has to be the 50 Apo M, because that lens is just killer already. And again, you want critical focus, you're guaranteed, just perfection with that lens on the M EV1. And also, I think a close second would be the 50.95 Noctilux. which is notoriously difficult to use on a rangefinder. But like I've been with that lens now for 15 odd years. I still have my original. I've gotten used to its quirks, and I believe I do a decent job with it even without EVF aids. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That was my favorite lens for weddings and stuff and portraits, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and it always was stuck at 0.95. I don't think it ever
Always,
anywhere. I think they
always.
could make that lens with no aperture blades. Just remove every damn thing. Just give us the glass and So for me, it's been the 35 now. Well, probably because I shoot 35 most of the time. If I have a Leica, it's always the 35. So 35 lakh. But yeah, I mean, I was interested in knowing what you thought kind of
Yeah.
really worked well with
I
that.
I've got an interesting side story to detract a bit.
Mhm.
I forget which event it was, but our usual friends were at Wetzlar. I think David Farkas was talking to Peter Carve, and I was just passing by, and I joined in the conversation, and for whatever reason, I said, "Hey, Peter, what do you think of this Noctilux?" Right, and this was the original 51.2. And Peter, as you know, is very fond of the 50s. And he actually said he had never shot the original 51.2. So he shot a picture of David Farkas. He loved the rendering. So that was an extremely special moment for David Farkas, for Peter Carbe, and for myself. Uh, just throwing a side story.
And was
yeah.
that the genesis of the reissue of the 1.2? Oh, this was
I
one you
don't
said,
know.
not 1.2. Did you say one or
No, no, the
1.2?
1.2. 1.2.
1.2. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably because they did the
could be.
reissue, right?
Could be.
Nice. And what about the menu system and stuff? Anything you find different, better, worse compared to the M11? I've used the monochrome M11 monochrome. I haven't used the M11, so I
Mm.
don't know whether there's
Well,
anything.
there's the new content credentials aspect, right, which was primarily relegated to M11P territory. And then with firmware 2.6.0, like I was beta testing the firmware as well with another group of folks. They had the fine tuning of the white balance, the new menu where you could kind of go anywhere you wanted on the grid to kind of skew more magenta or yellow or whatever. So that's new. Other than that, um, I really don't think there's anything that really jumps out as like different. No. Like, anything come to your mind, Hurry?
I actually have never had profiles in my cameras because
Okay.
people create a high contrast
Yeah.
profile, black and white profile, does that. I
Mm.
have none of that. I literally shoot DNG,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. I rarely go into the menus. Maybe at the beginning when I bought the camera, I set a higher limit of ISO to 50,000 because I don't care about noise. That's just that I quickly, in darkness, can go crank it up and I don't need to cycle through. But that aside, I really don't have much to do with the
Yeah.
menu systems when it comes to an
Yeah.
M. I
Yeah.
just lift it, shoot it, and that's it.
Yeah. I I'm like you. I don't really futz around with the user profiles. The only thing I've done is I've got a landscape user profile where I'm set to base ISO because if I'm doing hardcore landscapes, I'm using a tripod. I don't care. I schlep a tripod around. I have um, a 22-year-old Jitso now, and it's kind of my Canon 10D vintage, and an Arca Swiss ball head. So they're heavy, both of them. And if I'm doing landscapes, I'm carrying that, and so it helps to be able to kind of quickly go into landscape, make sure I'm at ISO 100. Like I'm doing a lot of early morning or late evening where the camera would tend to bump up the ISO, and I don't want that. I want just the base and the rich butteriness that comes from being at base, and I don't mind the extra exposure. And with that, I'm also kind of presetting the like 12-second lag from pressing the shutter. So that's all I do with the profiles. But those are useful to me, those particular aspects.
What do you use?
That's maybe, sorry, PV. Maybe that's an important thing you just mentioned there, Chats. Maybe we need to double click on that. I was thinking, why do I not do that? Because I do shoot a lot of landscapes, right? I
Yeah.
think in my case, this is where I love the Leica Photos app and how much they've evolved it over time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because I was thinking, what do I do what Chats is just talking about? I think in my case, I literally just use the Photos app. I put the camera somewhere. I do have a tripod, but I fail 3 times a year. Every time I plan to take it out, I take it out. It's in the car boot. It doesn't go beyond that. And I've
Yeah.
bought many tripods because I'm like, this is titanium, it's lighter, but
Yeah.
it's not so stable. And this is a monopod with 3 legs. So I've got all kinds of animals in that zoo. But I have to admit, I'm just way too lazy to do that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to acknowledge the Leica Photos app. It's come a long way. I
Mm-hmm.
really control the cameras with the Photos app, and that's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. No, I agree with you about photos and its evolution. And also, I think the camera to mobile phone communications has really improved. It's not as flaky as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's solid, it's reliable, it's stable, right? Which is super important. And I have to admit, I do like geeking out on the GPS geotagging. So the Photos app, really helps with that aspect. And for the social media junkies amongst us, and I think all of us fall into that category, it's helpful to be able to download a light version. When I say light, I mean a smaller file, a preview JPEG, and then just play with it a little bit, if at all, and immediately share it. So it's super convenient. So 100% agree with you. Nico Kohler and team and Wetzlar have done a stunning job with that. Yeah.
Yeah, the app has certainly come a long way. I used to never go anywhere near it, but now I think it's fairly easy doing that.
It's
And plus,
yeah.
all the apps that now you get on the phone. So even if you want to like quickly do something, the Lightroom app on the phone, it's
Yep.
really
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yep.
So do you guys use cards or the inbuilt memory?
Card.
Card.
Yeah. I love internal memories because trust me, I have forgotten cards a number of times.
Mm.
So I love it. And again, the app is there, so it's good. But if I want to import it onto a laptop or something, that's when it gets a little tricky. You got to connect and then do a little bit of gimmickry. But yeah, I love internal memories. I loved it in every camera that had the internal memory. That's my thing. I just hope cards just go away. And the other thing I just wanted to ask was any accessories you've got for the EV1?
The thumbs up for me, it's a mandatory attachment since I got the M9. Maybe not in the initial days. So when I got the M9, I think I started with the 52.8 Elmar, the Elmar M version. So it was still kind of light. But again, with the M9, I was trying to, I did the same mistakes I did with other cameras, right? I tried to use the M9 as my one thing for everything, which is a learning the camera taught me that I'm a rangefinder and you can do these things with me and I will get out of your way. I'm a rangefinder, so if you stick a 280 millimeter lens on me, you will suffer to actually get the focus because this was the M9, no live view, no EVF. I did try to wing it by shooting the 62.8 macro. So I used to kind of guesstimate the distance, and that's also where I learned zone focus on a non-zone focusable lens. which is kind of why I'm happy with the newer lenses because I can really zone focus. Uh, but yeah, that kind of is where I would go with that response. So it's really trying to make the optimum of what is the camera ready to do. And to me, that becomes a confusing proposition because I've trained to power my brain to say this is what an M does. But now with the M EV1, that's changed. Even with the M11 EVF, that's changed. So this is where some of the boundaries that taught me to be a better photographer have kind of eased out of the way. I'm happy I've kept the learning, but that to me was also one of the core principles of a rangefinder, right? So this is the box you're operating in, and this is where it'll do magically well. Anything to the left, right, above, and below, it's probably not the best tool.
Yeah. But for me, the only accessory I need is a rock and roll strap from Everest. That's it. I mean, his products are beautiful. I really love them, and so that's really it. I'm
Well,
fine
Chats,
with
now
the.
that you mention it, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say I'm happy with the ergonomics of the body, and the slight thumb rest that's there. It's fine. I mean, my finger is accustomed, I should say, to the feel, and there is really no difference in the feel per se. Obviously, on this side, the window's missing, right? But sometimes you touch it, but it's a good thing it's not there if it doesn't need to be there specifically. So yeah, that's really it.
I just
Now
I
that you
love.
mention it, uh, sorry, man, I realized pretty much every camera I have
Yeah,
has a rock and roll strap on it. I didn't
yeah.
even realize that till you just brought it up.
That's
So
all I
this is from
use.
Everest. This is
Mhm.
from Everest. I mean, I've got a bunch of cameras here, and it's all rock and roll straps.
Yeah, I hope someday that they go widespread across all the Leica stores because they really deserve to be in every single one of the 100 plus stores. I mean, they're amazing.
I love nowadays most of my cameras I just do this because I have this pain on my
Hmm.
shoulders and stuff, and if anything is hanging on my neck, it kind of starts bothering me beyond a
Yeah.
specific time. So yeah, I just nowadays all my cameras I have this. So it just goes, you can just tighten it and just walk around with it, and when you need it, just you know. So this
Yeah.
is my neck straps are all lying here, and I have some beautiful ones, but I hardly use any neck straps anymore. And that's pretty
I
much
mean,
I just
depends on the weight, right? Uh,
yeah.
depends
Yeah.
on the weight because again, this is the SL3 with the 2490, for which I have this thick strap from Everest, and that's kind of the last tolerable weight I have for my neck. There are certain cameras where I have no strap, and I don't think I ever will use one.
Mm.
So this is one of my favorites. This is the Hasselblad 205 FCC with a beautiful 110 f2 planar, and this is a special one. This has been modified digitally by Hasselblad for digital backs.
Oh,
So
nice.
this, of course, is the medium format back, but I can take it out and use the 100 megapixel digital back. With this, I would never use a strap.
Yeah.
This is so
It
heavy.
pretty much goes
It's a
Hmm.
tank.
Yeah. Beautiful.
awesome. We're almost at an hour or just over an hour. Any other so okay, so main question, where does Leica go from here with the M series? I'm sure there's an insider information is what we need. Are they I'm assuming that they're going to be the EV and the RF variation for every M going forward. Any news on that?
If you read our article interview with Stefan, or if you saw kind of Hari's YouTube interview, excellent YouTube interview, by the way, Hari. Um,
Thank you.
it's a function of whether the market's going to bear, this or not. But the rangefinder is not going away. Like,
Yeah.
let's put that to rest permanently. I've seen a lot of wrong comments, and I would say rather flippant comments, that Leica did the wrong thing by killing the rangefinder, and they've come out with this experience and it's not good, others do better, blah, 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 blah. And the rangefinder is going nowhere. The rangefinder has been around for 70 plus years now. It is here to stay, but whether the cameras continue to offer an EVF internal version or not is going to be a function of whether the market asks for it or not. I mean, it took several years of asking for them to pre-think this potential solution with the M11 platform, like it was already designed back then, and then ultimately offer an elegant solution, which didn't break the bank in terms of having to do research or rethink the platform, because that's not wise. And at the end of the day, we all have to realize that even though we think Leica's full of money, that they have to be wise custodians of their available cash, right? And they're going to do what's financially prudent for them while doing their best to meet their patrons' desires. And I think that's what they've done here, and that's what they're going to continue to do. They're going to be very prudent,
Spot on,
thoughtful, and
Chats.
deliberate. Yeah.
Spot on. I mean, this is my own view, right? So the reason they could have got to this point is one, you have the M rangefinder users who wanted a native EVF solution,
Yeah.
but you also have the native Q users
Yeah.
who wanted the M experience.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes exactly halfway to both the requests and satisfies two groups of
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah.
So I would think there's a really good market out there, but again, we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh, it was a mistake to base this on the M platform. It should have been on the Q platform." But what I would respectfully state that they're forgetting is that the M platform is wonderfully balanced for the amazing M lenses like the 75 buck 25, the 75 1.5 Sumilux, right? So it's perfectly balanced regardless of weight, really. I mean, I think it's an engineering marvel when you think about it. The center of gravity with such a heavy lens, like the Noctilux 50.95 is quite heavy. The 50.12 reissue, the silver version, is quite heavy. The original is also heavy. The 75 125 is heavy. The 91.5 is heavy. Feels perfectly balanced on an M. It would be extremely lopsided on a Q platform. And so I think they really put a lot of thought into this, and I really wish that people would just step back and try and understand why Leica made the design choices they made. And they've got several stakeholders that they have to keep happy, and one of them, frankly, really is themselves. They have a fiduciary responsibility to do the right thing for themselves while walking this tightrope between these camps that are kind of polarized in a way. So I think
And
they've
while
done an
we
excellent job.
and while we're talking about medium format, the Q has the shutter in the lens. So you cannot
Yeah.
base that camera because the
Yeah.
shutter just doesn't fit in the body.
Yeah. That's a leaf shutter platform. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
whole different.
yeah.
Um,
So people don't understand these things, and they just talk about things. I don't know, to get clicks, and that's fine. But it's also not fine because a lot of thought went into this. I mean, if you think about the people that have designed this, like Stefan's been around for over 40 years in one company. He joined as an intern when he was 16. And yeah, he put a lot of careful thought and consideration into this body, and I applaud him and Leica for it. Absolutely.
Great. I think I mean, at least I have exhausted my set of thoughts and questions, but anything you want to add, please feel free.
Well, I'm wondering why it took us so many years to do this
I know.
podcast.
I know. We'll do it more
Yeah,
often.
let's.
And guys, none of this was scripted. This is
Yeah. Yeah.
completely spontaneous,
Hmm?
open, transparent conversation. So I'm wondering why we took so long, but I'm also hoping
Hoping
we
in
won't
one
take
take.
long for the
One
next.
take, right?
Yep.
Single take. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we can do one on the Q3 monochrome maybe in a bit if
Let's do it.
you guys are going to use it.
Let's do
I'm
it.
sure Hari will definitely use it. Chats, did you get a chance to
Absolutely.
play with the Q3
No,
monochrome? No? Okay.
I haven't.
Yeah, so I'm iffy right now whether I want to give that a go or not, but we'll see. I always say no, and then eventually, you
Well,
know, just yeah. So thank you, gentlemen. Absolute pleasure. Listening to you guys, your perspective from people who've been so close to Leica, the camera and the company. So this has been really enriching and really looking forward to do this more often. Thank you so much.
yeah, looking
Absolutely.
forward to it.
Real
Thank you.
pleasure.